Hiya, and welcome to this podcast, The Teen Whisperer, a podcast for mums of teen girls who are trying their best to figure out this whole, teenager thing without completely losing the plot. I'm Rach Friedley, and I help mums just like you build stronger, more connected relationships with your daughters by understanding what's really going on beneath all those eye rolls and slam doors. You know the ones. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm a mum to a teenage girl. So yeah, 100% I get it. So if you listened to last week's episode, we continued on the subject of mock exams, about exam pressure pushing your teen and you to the breaking point. If you missed it, scroll back, because there's some gold in there about understanding how exam pressure can wreak havoc on your daughter's body, brain and emotions. This week, we're moving on from the mock exam season, as I believe it's over, but on a similar thread, as I want to zero in on something really specific, self-pressure and how it shows up. Now, I know we touched on it last week, but this week I want to dive into it far more. So let me start by asking, have you ever looked at your daughter and thought, why is she being so hard on herself? Maybe she's hiding in her room, overwhelmed by schoolwork or a project or work or anything that she's afraid to start. Or maybe she's been snapping at you for asking what seems like a simply harmless question like, how's your day been? It's like you're walking on eggshells, wondering what's going on in that beautiful mind of hers. I get it, because I've been there. And today we're tackling a big one: self-pressure, perfectionism, and the fear of failure. They're all rolled into one. These invisible weights can crush your daughter's spirit and wreak havoc on her mental health. So grab your cuppa, or maybe that glass of wine, if it's really been one of those days, you know the ones, and let's unpack what's going on and what we can do about it. So first, let's talk how self-pressure shows up in your daughter's life. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like tears over a less than perfect test score. And when I'm saying less than perfect, I'm saying the results of those mock exams and your daughter saying, oh, I only got a 7 instead of a 9. A 7 is still an A. But because there is so much pressure to get that 9, that elusive 9, she puts pressure on herself. Other times it's scrolling TikTok or obsessing over that one selfie she doesn't think looks quite right. Or maybe it's the fear of actually trying in the first place. There's no point in trying because she's going to fail. So then she doesn't bother. And then, of course, it then gets worse. And the overwhelm gets worse. The panic gets worse. The fight or flight gets worse. And you're left in this ever-evolving cycle of behaviours. It can also show up as defensiveness, snapping at you or shutting down completely. And let's not forget ye olde procrastination. You know, that big science project due next week. She hasn't even opened her laptop yet. So why is this happening? What's causing this wave of self-pressure? Well, here's the deal. Teenage girls are under an avalanche of expectations, some of which come from outside, like school, friends, work, social media, and some from within, like their own drive to be perfect. Because that ever elusive perfection is there everywhere you look. But physiologically, her teenage brain is still developing, specifically ye olde prefrontal cortex, which, as you know, I've talked about before, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation. So when she feels like she's failing, her brain gets stuck in overdrive, amplifying that fear and anxiety. And that is where that cycle of behaviours comes from, pattern of behaviours. But also, dopamine comes in here as well. You've probably heard of it as the feel-good hormone, but it's also the brain's reward system. So for your daughter, dopamine is what motivates her to succeed. But when she sets unrealistic expectations and feels like she's falling short, her brain doesn't get that dopamine boost. It's like being stuck in a cycle where the reward feels out of reach over and over and over again, despite what she does. And let's not forget her heart. Emotionally, she's carrying that guilt and shame when she feels like she's actually not meeting her own standards or yours, even if that pressure is her perception, not an actual fact. And then if she kicks off at you, then she's then ashamed of feeling like that and feeling like she's upset you. And it's a double whammy, triple whammy. So a study from the CDC found that teen girls are 30% more likely than boys to experience anxiety and depression during the teenage years. Why? Because girls are often juggling so many external and internal pressures. And when girls feel stress, they tend to internalize those feelings. So they take it out against themselves. That's where self-harm comes in. That's where the self-belittling behaviours, we've all been there. I did it this morning. Also the self-destruct behaviours against yourself, not wanting to wash, dress, clean herself, look good for herself. All of those behaviours affect her. And of course, social media alone can amplify this. Those filters, likes and comparisons become fuel for self-doubt. And as we all know, social media is very much in the news right now with Instagram, TikTok, not so much Facebook because they don't use it. I'm not sure about Snapchat, but they're all about removing those filters and making it more real and having a nice teenage account. Yeah, I get it. It works part way. But the bottom line, she's not being dramatic. Her brain, her body, and her heart are overwhelmed. So let's talk about solutions. Here are 3 simple tools to help her and you right now. Motivation is number 1. Small wins add up. So motivation isn't about leaping tall buildings in a single bound, as we're kind of taught to believe. It's about taking those tiny, weeny steps one at a time. If your daughter feels overwhelmed, break things down into micro goals. Instead of finish the essay, write that first sentence. I know it sounds counterintuitive, and I know it sounds like, but my daughter knows how to write that first sentence. But when she's in overwhelm, she cannot write that first sentence. So that will be enough in itself for her to do. Celebrate each win with her, no matter how tiny weeny they are. And here's the magic. When she accomplishes those micro goals, her brain gets that dopamine boost, reminding her that progress is possible. Resilience training is brain training, so start small. A 4-minute Tabata routine once a day is enough for her brain and her body. Pick 2 movements to do for 20-second blocks with a 10-second break. Enough to fit into that 4-minute routine. Change it up and make it exciting enough to trigger those endorphins, that feel-good hormone, into her day. That then builds on the motivation, builds on the excitement, and builds on the, yes, I can do this. Number 3, protect her sleep. We cannot underestimate the power of a good night's sleep. Her brain needs it to process the day, store memories, and recharge emotionally. Create a bedtime routine that feels like self-care. Maybe a hot chocolate, a screen-free hour, or even just dimming the lights earlier. And having time just to connect and chat before bed is paramount to their health and well-being. Otherwise, they go to sleep overthinking, those thoughts ruminating around their heads 24/7, and then they can't sleep. So yeah, have a connection time just before she goes to bed. So if you're sitting there nodding along thinking, yes, this is exactly what my daughter is going through, let me tell you, you're not alone. None of us are alone in this. And I don't know why, but society decides that us as mums of teenage girls don't need any help or support from anyone around us. But actually, we need more support now, and so do them, than any other time in their lives, except for when she was a newborn, of course. So this is why I created the Mum-to-Mum Connection, which is a space where you can connect with other mums navigating those same challenges as yourself. No judgment, no advice, just talking together as mums all in one space. You don't have to do this alone, mums. And for your daughter, there's the Glow Group, a safe, supportive community for teen girls to build confidence and learn tools for managing that stress and anxiety, and ways that she can build that confidence and that resilience. And finally, don't miss my guide, Raising Confident Girls in a Digital World. It's packed with practical advice and strategies to help you and your daughter thrive in today's tech-driven landscape. You can find all the details at my website, which is the 3Ws Teen Whisperer, theteenwhisperer.co.uk, or follow me on Instagram there, again, the Teen Whisperer. So all right, mums, that's a wrap on today's episode. Remember, self-pressure and perfectionism might be part of your daughter's story right now, but it doesn't have to define her. With a little understanding, some small but impactful tools, and your unwavering support, she can turn that pressure into something positive. So let's be proactive rather than reactive, because showing up for her today builds the foundation for her tomorrow. So thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. So if you know of a mum who needs to know this stuff, share my episode with her. review my episodes, review my podcast. The more people that we can get seeing this stuff and listening to it, the more we can make this a norm, that we are supposed to be connecting as mums together. So yeah, that's enough for me today, and I'll speak to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.